Hello. With my exams and the holidays past, I finally have time to go over some of the Bioware news I missed last month. We'll start with Dragon Age, looking at a short teaser we got on Dragon Age Day 2023 entitled Thedas Calls. This teaser shows us several locations on the map, accompanied by a voiceover for each location. I'll go over this section by section, starting with Antiva.
We fight for everyone, and we always will. The Crows rule Antiva.
Okay, the map section at the start is just showing us northern Antiva with several crow motifs and Arlathan Forest in the upper left, but our focus is on the city of Treviso, which previously released short stories have told us is under occupation by the Qunari. The following image is a cityscape we've seen in some previously released images, but this is our confirmation that it is Treviso. The voiceover sounds like two women, I think. The first line, "We fight for everyone and we always will," sounds a little younger and wouldn't make sense if it's the same person I suspect is the latter voice. The latter voice, saying "the crows rule Antiva," I suspect is Caterina Della Morte, the leader of the Antivan Crows. It would be weird if she said the first thing, since "we fight for everyone" does not sound like the motto of a guild of assassins for hire tied heavily into the backstabbing politics of Antiva. Maybe it's a younger underling with naive ideals. In any case, Antiva has been long suspected to be on our list of locations for Dragon Age Dreadwolf, so none of this is too surprising. What did surprise me was the next location, Ravane.
Glory to the risen gods. They come to deliver this world.
I was not expecting us to visit Ravane, but if we do visit Navarra, as implied by some older art releases, then Dreadwolf will have us visiting pretty much every country in Thedas that we didn't visit in previous games. The image of the country is covered by a massive squid, and though no specific area is highlighted on the country, the area we see is a ruined coastal region. We've seen concept art of sea monsters before for this game, and the smart money has always been on these being tied to the elven goddess Gillinane, who was said to have created sea monsters of the deep that she could not bring herself to destroy. Why exactly they're coming up now, I don't know, but now we can guess that this aspect of the plot will be focused in Ravane. Gillinane has also been linked to strange happenings in the Arlathan Forest, and mysterious pools of monster-mutating goo in the deep roads, so it seems like she's tied to a lot of the strange things going on. Not much more to say about that at this point, really, but Ravane has always been a place I wanted to know more about, so I'm excited to finally see it, even if it is probably just going to be this one coastal area. The voiceover is not someone we know or I can guess at, but it seems like some sort of crazed cultist that's worshipping these risen gods. Let's look at the next area, the Anderfells.
Grey Wardens don't hide in our castle. I won't ask good soldiers to turn tail and run.
The Anderfells is mostly known for high levels of devotion to Andraste and for being host to the headquarters of the Grey Wardens. Both are represented here in the statue of a woman and a griffin, but the highlighted location is associated with the latter, the Grey Warden fortress of Weishaupt. We see lightning crackling in the night sky, showing us a landscape with a ruined tower and these large metal piles stuck into the ground. I presume this is probably the path to Weishaupt. The voiceover says, "Grey Wardens don't hide in our castle," and then, "I won't ask good soldiers to turn tail and run." I don't know who this is, but if the pattern so far is any indication, then it's probably a significant NPC for this area. We know there might be a Grey Warden named Davrin in the game, but that's as far as I can speculate. The dialogue itself suggests some conflict at the fortress itself and possibly impacting the area around it. The people of the Anderfels are known to look to the Wardens for leadership, so maybe the people of the local area are looking to them for protection. As for what they need protection from, well, we don't know, but if it's Grey Wardens, then Darkspawn would be a reasonable guess. From other reveals, there could be Darkspawn infected by red lyrium, or possibly mutated monsters from those grey pools linked to Gillinane I mentioned before. Previously released concept art also indicates a possible tear in the veil, so we'll just have to wait and see. That was the last section, but the final shot takes us out over northern Thedas in general, with Tevinter in the center, and we can see an illustration of the imperial capital Minrathous up near the top. That's another place that has been heavily suggested as a location in previous media releases. Also, the eastern part of Tevinter, which should be under Kunari occupation at this time, has an illustration of tangled snakes or tentacles. I'm not sure what that's about.
All the world will soon share the peace and comfort of my reign.
A very sinister voiceover says, "All the world will soon share the peace and comfort of my reign." We don't know who this is, though it definitely doesn't sound like Solus or the Dreadwolf. It also doesn't sound like something he would say. I've heard speculation that it could be anyone from the Black Divine to one of the returned elven gods, like Falun Din. One person I really don't think it is the Archon. Admittedly, this is based on a comic. Archon Radonus has appeared in a comic, and while he was portrayed as very concerned with securing imperial power, he also seemed very pragmatic, and not given to this sort of megalomania. At any rate, some past leaks have suggested our character will be traveling to various locations using Eluvians, magical mirrors that featured prominently in the Trespasser DLC, so that will likely explain how we'll be traveling between these far-flung places. At the end, we're told the game will have its full reveal in summer 2024, suggesting a probable late 2024 release date if they're going for a short marketing cycle, and otherwise early 2025. I won't speculate more than that. Suffice to say, don't expect to hear much more about this game until the summer. Let's take a look at a surprise teaser for the next Mass Effect game, released in November 2023. This started with a bit of an ARG with some mystery text that had to be decoded, but I wasn't there for it, so I won't go through the details of exactly what happened, except to express my appreciation for the people that actually figured it out. On the Mass Effect page of the EA website, you can access the teaser page by adding Epsilon to the URL, which gives the following text: Access code Epsilon, access code accepted, secondary encryption detected, and then a sequence that has been decoded to Oculon 2819 Defiance. Oculon, and Epsilon for that matter, were apparently early tentative titles for the first Mass Effect game, but I'm not sure of their significance here except that Epsilon is the 5th letter of the Greek alphabet, and the next Mass Effect game will be the 5th game in the series. Defiance is probably the redacted word in the text at the bottom, but the most revealing thing is probably the number. 2819 is the year when Mass Effect Andromeda takes place, when the Arks arrived in the Andromeda Galaxy over 600 years after the events of the Mass Effect trilogy. The next line, Andromeda Distress Signal Detected, supports that connection, and the redacted year sent is probably 2819. This is basically our first real confirmation that the next Mass Effect game will take place after, and to some extent follow up on, the events of Mass Effect Andromeda. We know from previous teasers that characters like Liara, who should still be in the Milky Way, will be involved in the next game, so it seems there will be some bridge between the Milky Way and Andromeda settings with characters from both Andromeda and the trilogy being involved. Though given the 6th century minimum time jump, only some characters from the trilogy, like Liara or Grunt, are likely to still be alive when this game takes place. This also means Bioware will probably have to pick a canon ending for Mass Effect 3, most likely the Destroy ending, or Frankensteining a canon state together from multiple ending options, like a Deus Ex game. I'll elaborate on that if anyone wants to hear me speculate about how the endings will be handled. The audio transcript at the end is an exact quote from an audio log from Liara that was released a year ago. The unredacted quote being, "Although they should know by now not to underestimate human defiance." Without context, I'm not sure what those words imply except that humans are under threat, which isn't surprising at all. Let's look at the teaser itself. It's only 30 seconds long, showing us a helmeted figure in a long coat walking through a somewhat industrial-looking space with seemingly a large and possibly polluted city outside. I only have a few notes. First, the coat is a departure from the previous hard suits Shepard and Ryder wore, so I'm wondering if that means there will be a bit more variety in our main character's look. Second, the N7 suggests that the Alliance is still around, unless the designation was adopted for some other purpose, and our main character, assuming this is them, is probably a human agent. Third, the coat and the seemingly urban setting give me a vibe, and it is just a vibe at this point, that this game could lean more into the cyberpunk-ish seedy underworld elements of Mass Effect 2, for example, rather than the open-world exploration theme of Andromeda. That would be in keeping with rumors that have come out that the next Mass Effect would lean more towards the linear level design of the trilogy. Lastly, we have a promotional image. The figure is the same as the one from the teaser trailer, and I've said what I think about that. We also see a gun, which I don't think is a model we've seen in Mass Effect before, though that would be expected if centuries have passed. I doubt the same guns are in circulation unless they're coming from Andromeda. More interestingly is what seems to be a club scene. It's very evocative of clubs like the Afterlife and Purgatory from the original trilogy, which strengthens my feelings that this game is going to lean into those seedy, high-tech underworld vibes. Looking more closely, we can pick out the silhouettes of many familiar aliens: Asari, Krogan, Salarian, Turian, Hanar. Some people think this Turian with an eyepiece is Garrus because that was his signature look, but again, more than 600 years have passed, so I really think this is just a random Turian with an eyepiece. The most interesting element here, though, is this trio of figures in the center of the image pushed into the back of the scene. First of all, that figure on the left seems to be an Angara, a species native and, as far as we know, exclusive to Andromeda. He seems to be talking to an Asari, and while it is hard to tell in even the largest version of this image I could find, that Asari might be wearing similar clothes to, and have similar face paint to, PB from Mass Effect Andromeda. Even if that isn't PB, the Angara pretty much confirms that they will be bridging the settings of the Milky Way and Andromeda somehow. On the right, we have what looks like a Geth platform, which suggests that, regardless of how they decide to handle the endings, at least some Geth survived the events of Mass Effect 3. That it's standing in a crowded club might suggest some big changes to how Galactic Society views the Geth since the Reaper War. I can't wait to see how. It also seems to be wearing some sort of cloth or robe. I think we're in for some interesting aesthetic changes. I have no idea how long it will take for this game to come out, but I'd hazard a guess you shouldn't expect it until at least 2026 at the earliest, and more likely 2027 or 2028. That's all I have for Bioware news, but I do have one thing I want to mention, namely Exodus, a newly announced game with some surprisingly big-name ex-Bioware developers behind it, which was announced at the Game Awards this year. Exodus is an action-adventure RPG seemingly very much in the same vein as Mass Effect, taking place in a distant future where humanity has settled a far corner of the cosmos using arc ships to travel across space for thousands of years. I've made a video going over all the available lore and other information about the game if anyone is interested. A final note, and I'm mostly mentioning this because I know a lot of people who watch my videos are into Cyberpunk. I just wanted to mention some thoughts on future coverage for that franchise. I fully plan to continue putting out lore videos, but I'm not expecting anything game-wise for the next year or two. CDPR has new Witcher games and the Cyberpunk sequel codenamed Orion in the pipeline, but I don't think they're very far along in development, and I'm not expecting us to hear much about them anytime soon. If you want to hear my speculation about what Orion might be about, I can do that, but otherwise expect to get a Cyberpunk lore video in the next few months. The next video, however, should be this Dragon Age Absolution review I've been working on. Speaking of Dragon Age, I have a code up on screen that you can use to get a discount at the Bioware gear store. See link in the description. That should be active for the next week. Until my next upload, I hope you had great holidays and a better year before you than the last. Take care.